The little candle on the table had almost burned down to its last inch when I finally accepted the truth. My blind date was never coming. Around me, couples laughed over dinner, families celebrated birthdays, and strangers shared conversations that somehow felt warmer than the silence sitting across from me. I had checked my phone so many times that the screen had started to feel heavier than my heart. I was seconds away from paying the bill and walking out with another reminder that hope could be painfully expensive. But before I stood, the waitress gently placed a fresh cup of coffee in front of me, pulled out the empty chair, and quietly sat down. There was something unusual in her eyes, not pity, not curiosity, but the weight of a secret. Then she looked at me and softly said that she wanted to tell me something, and in that single moment, everything I believed about that evening was about to change forever. Before we continue this unforgettable journey, please take a moment to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share this story with someone who still believes in kindness, and subscribe to Tales of Kindness if you believe that second chances can appear when we least expect them. Your support helps stories like this reach more hearts around the world. My name is Rowan Mercer, and for most of my adult life, disappointment had become a familiar companion. I wasn't unlucky because life had been cruel all the time. I was simply someone who had learned to expect less after years of broken promises. My parents had divorced when I was young, my engagement had ended just 2 months before my wedding, and after spending years caring for my aging grandmother until her final days, I realized I had forgotten how to build a life for myself. Friends insisted I should try dating again, and after months of refusing, I finally agreed to let one of them arrange a blind date. They promised she was kind, thoughtful, and someone who understood what loneliness felt like. For the first time in years, I spent extra time choosing a clean blue shirt, trimming my beard, and arriving early at a small daytime cafe overlooking a peaceful city park filled with blooming flowers and children chasing pigeons under the bright afternoon sun. The cafe was simple but welcoming. Warm sunlight poured through large windows, painting soft golden squares across the wooden floor. Fresh flowers decorated every table, and gentle piano music floated through the air. I ordered coffee and waited. 10 minutes became 20. 20 became 45. Every time the front door opened, my heart quietly prepared itself, only to settle back into disappointment. Messages remained unread. Calls went unanswered. Eventually, I convinced myself that maybe she had changed her mind, or maybe someone had played a cruel joke on me without realizing how much courage it had taken for me to be there. The waitress had noticed everything. Throughout the afternoon she never interrupted, never asked uncomfortable questions, and never made me feel embarrassed. She simply refilled my coffee without charging for it and occasionally offered a reassuring smile. When she finally sat across from me, I expected her to apologize for occupying a customer's table. Instead, she took a slow breath and admitted that she knew exactly why my date had never arrived. She explained that earlier that morning a young woman had entered the cafe carrying a small envelope. She appeared nervous, constantly looking toward the entrance before finally asking the waitress to deliver the envelope only if the man in the blue shirt remained after an hour. The waitress respected her request and waited until the right moment. She carefully handed me the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter. The woman introduced herself as Marin Holloway. She confessed that she had come to meet me. She had even watched me through the cafe window for several minutes. But before walking inside, fear overwhelmed her. Years earlier she had survived a terrible car accident that left visible scars across one side of her face. Since then she had endured countless moments of judgment, uncomfortable stares, and people pretending not to notice while secretly looking away. She wrote that she wasn't afraid of rejection anymore. She was afraid of seeing kindness disappear from someone's eyes after they looked at her for the first time. She apologized for leaving and hoped I would someday forgive a stranger whose courage failed her at the final step. I finished reading with tears quietly gathering in my eyes. The waitress gently admitted there was one more thing. As Marin walked away from the cafe, she had dropped something without realizing it. It was a small silver bracelet engraved with the words, "Still worth loving." Without thinking twice, I stood up and asked which direction she had gone. The waitress pointed toward the park across the street. I hurried outside beneath the warm afternoon sky, passing children flying colorful kites and elderly couples feeding birds beside the fountain. Every face became a possibility until, near a quiet garden bench surrounded by blooming roses, I saw a woman sitting alone, gently wiping tears from her cheeks while staring at the peaceful lake. She looked exactly as the letter had described. The scars on her face were visible, but they disappeared the moment I noticed the sadness in her eyes. I slowly approached and held out the bracelet. She looked shocked before lowering her eyes in embarrassment. For several silent seconds neither of us moved. Then I simply smiled, not because I pitied her, but because I finally understood something about both of us. We had both spent years believing our broken pieces made us impossible to love. Instead of asking why she ran away, I thanked her for writing the letter. It was the most honest introduction anyone had ever given me. The walls she had spent years building began to crumble. She admitted she almost walked into the cafe 5 different times before fear convinced her to leave. Every rejection from her past echoed louder than hope. We spent the rest of the afternoon walking through the park, sharing stories neither of us had planned to tell a stranger. I told her about caring for my grandmother and losing my confidence after my failed engagement. She shared how surviving the accident had changed not only her appearance but also the way she viewed herself. Beneath every scar was someone who still dreamed of ordinary happiness, yet believed those dreams belonged to everyone else. Weeks turned into months. Our first official date happened at the very same cafe during another bright afternoon. The waitress greeted us with the biggest smile either of us had ever seen. We laughed about the strange beginning that almost never became a beginning at all. Slowly, we stopped trying to hide our pasts and started building a future together. Neither of us needed perfect faces or perfect histories. We simply needed someone willing to stay when life became uncomfortable. The greatest surprise came almost a year later when we returned to the cafe carrying wedding invitations for the staff. The waitress who had chosen compassion over silence became one of our honored guests. She told us she had almost ignored the envelope that day, thinking it wasn't her place to become involved. Instead, one small act of kindness connected 2 wounded hearts that had nearly missed each other forever. If this story has touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who may be losing hope, and subscribe to Tales of Kindness for more unforgettable stories that remind us goodness still exists in this world.